Let's see. It's my phone says it's 21 degrees right now, but it feels like 10 in beautiful Egg Harbor Township. Steve Coates. So, what's the weather like in Sunrise, Florida?
Partly cloudy and a 80-degree temperature here today.
Would you like to do the 5-day extended forecast?
If you've got time.
So the Flyers.
And you know what?
Go ahead.
It was 80 degrees here yesterday.
Not a bad way to come back off Christmas break.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
All right, so Flyers at Panthers tonight, Flyers at Tampa tomorrow night, back-to-back, Steve Coates. And let's start with this, okay? I've seen this number go around a lot this morning as I was looking at some different facts and figures. The Flyers traditionally, this is the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about myself. The Flyers traditionally have had poor starts after that Christmas break. In fact, I think the stats are like 0-9-2. Now, I told Nick Costco they're skewered because a lot of times that break has been come back from Christmas and go out to L.A. or Anaheim or Vancouver. This is a much shorter trip. But do you put any stock in the fact that they had a couple days off and they might come back rusty?
No, because, well, can they come out rested? Sure, but so can the Florida Panthers. Everybody's got the same circumstance here as far as coming off the break, because it's an NHLPA rule that they started last night. The Florida Panthers are starting tonight against the Flyers, so they've had the same time off. So I don't know. I don't put any stock in it. And looking at the schedule, this is the first time, looking at my schedule, the first time that I've ever been back, which of course, as a team, is that third time, I think, in I don't know how many years that the team's been here for New Year's. So this is a completely different schedule as compared to, like you mentioned, heading back out west and playing a very tough. Usually go play with Anaheim and, like you said, Anaheim and Los Angeles, San Jose. That's all done. Got it all behind them now. So now it's all division games, which makes it very tough. And what's making it even tougher now, as you watched last night, every division foe last night won points.
Yeah.
And it's getting tougher. And this division really is probably the toughest division in hockey right now.
Now, that Metro division, that's said over and over again that it's the toughest division in hockey, and yet the Flyers' challenge now is to make up points. I know the narrative is that every game is like a 4-point game. Just how difficult will it be, Coatsy, for them? I mean, they had gone on the 10-game losing streak. They played their rear ends off to then go pretty well and try to climb back close to a playoff spot. Just how hard is it to climb up, though, in a division like the Metro?
Well, you got to look at the whole picture. I mean, obviously, winning the division is your goal, but this division is so tough right now. You got to look at the conference and kind of take your eye or keep your eye on the wild card. But it really doesn't make any difference in the scheme of things. You got to look at the number of points that you get or have to earn to make the playoffs. That number is pretty consistent in that 94, 96 point range. So when you take a look at that and put into consideration where the Flyers right now have 38 points, they got a way to go, but they haven't even reached the halfway point of this season. So there's a lot of things that are going to come into play, especially now where you're just going to be playing Atlantic Division and Metropolitan Division teams. But the bottom line is you just got to win hockey games. Doesn't matter what everybody else does.
Yep, and take a look at the big picture. We're talking with Flyers radio analyst Steve Coates. You can hear him and Tim Saunders with the call right here on 97.3 ESPN tonight. Flyers and Panthers puck drops at 7:30 in Sunrise, Florida. Let's get into some of the lines, Coatesy, and what Dave Hextall is doing with his lines. I saw one story that said, a promotion to the top line for a player with 1 point in a dozen games seems like kind of an odd move. But what do you think about Travis Konecny, TK, moving to that top line? And what do you think Dave Hextall is hoping to accomplish by moving him up to that line?
Well, I think the bottom line is they got him moving. He got him going. And, we put so much emphasis on the line combinations in this world today. And obviously it's a point of conversation. But if we ever did the combinations and permutations of how many times a line or lines changed during a regular hockey season, Scotty Bowman used to do it every shift. Mike Keenan would have them all over the place. So, every coach is different in the way they handle it, but in this case, Konecny is a perfect example of you're only as good as who you play with. So he gets an opportunity to play with Couturier and Giroux. They're very highly skilled players. So now he's going to get to reap that benefit. And the other thing, too, is when you get that opportunity to play on a line like that, you better take advantage of it and work your tail off. And I thought Travis Konecny had his best game this year, and hopefully that translates into more production for this hockey team tonight.
Steve, Nick Cosper, thanks for joining us as always. Just wanted to
Nick.
Just wanted to throw this at you, sticking with the offense here. Obviously, Drew is kind of having a resurgent year. Sean Couturier is playing well. One guy who I've noticed who has not been playing particularly well and who seems to be the leader of this team, at least in the scoring categories the past couple seasons, is Wayne Simmons. And I feel like the Flyers need to get him going if they're going to reach their full potential on offense. What have you seen from this team that could possibly get Wayne Simmons going? As you mentioned, Travis Konecny making the move up to the first line. You know, what's the deal with Wayne Simmons, and how can he start improving as the season progresses towards the halfway point?
Well, he was struggling with injuries. And, you know, when you get set back like that, it's hard to get going again. And the other thing, too, is that Wayne Simmons has played, I mean, they've had him all over the place as far as playing with different people. And even when he was the leading goal scorer, he was playing with all different centers all the time. It didn't matter. He'd make them better. He didn't have to worry about himself getting better from anybody else because that's how he played. I think when you take a look at the power play struggling at times, that he struggles with that a little bit. But I think that just overall, the injuries, he got hit on the bench with a puck, and I really took an awful lot of surgery to fix him. So those kind of things set guys like that back. So I'm not worried about Wayne Simmons at all. I think that the cream comes to the top at this time of year. We always kid about, you know, you play for fun till Christmas, and after that, we play serious. And this is where the standings start gaining a personality, where we watch every day. We understand what's going on around us. We look to see what we're going to do and what we have to do on a game-to-day basis. So I just put him in that group of, yeah, he'll be here when it's time. And I think it's that time right now.
In the Flyers' past 10 games, they're 7-2-1. Obviously, as Pete mentioned before, they were on a 10-game skid, and now they've kind of climbed back into the playoff picture here. If you had to point out to one guy who's been key in this resurgence in the past few games, to me it's Jake Voracek. But aside from him, or maybe it is him in your mind, what has been the biggest key for the Flyers here to get back into the playoff picture and to get back to winning hockey, as we thought we were about to write him off a couple weeks ago?
Well, if you're going to name the guy that's been the most important guy on a game-to-game basis, has been Brian Elliott. Not even a doubt. I mean, he was our best player in the 10-game losing streak. Could you imagine what it would have been like if he hadn't have been that good? And then when you take a look at the game he had in Buffalo, and the team just throws a shoe on him, it's sad that happened. I mean, even in Columbus, same thing, same situation where, you know, you got an opportunity to win a hockey game, but your goaltender is continually to be your best player. So that's the guy that I would look at if I had to push a button right now and say, yeah, but who's the guy? Brian Elliott.
You mentioned Brian Elliott. I actually wanted to get to him next. You know, when people saw his signing in the offseason, people were saying, all right, another veteran goaltender, just continues the revolving door. But as you mentioned, he's played pretty well even during the 10-game skid. He's been very important in their recent resurgence. So is Elliott the guy moving forward the rest of the season? I know Neuvirth has battled injuries all season long, but if Dave Haxtell had to make a decision between the two, is Brian Elliott basically the number one guy through and thick and through now?
Oh, absolutely. No two ways about it. I mean, he's earned it. You know, and when you take a look at analytics and talking about playing goaltenders back-to-back, where analytics will tell you play your number one guy the first night and Neuvirth the second night, we don't do that right now. And we didn't do it when Alex Lyon was here. That would have been a little dangerous, putting Alex Lyon in a couple of those games and throwing him under the bus. But I think that when you take a look at Neuvirth, you just never know what you're going to get right now because he is so injury-prone. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Elliott go back-to-back here, depending upon how much work he gets tonight against the Panthers.
Steve Coates with this, Flyers radio analyst. No Roberto Luongo for the Panthers, Coates. What do you know about this James Reimer that looks like he'll be in net for Florida?
Well, James Reimer's a former draft pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He played actually for the San Jose Sharks last year. He was the backup for the San Jose Sharks when they went to the 2 years ago, I guess, for the Stanley Cup Final. So when you take a look at Reimer. He's won 3 in a row. He was Player of the Week or second star, I think, last week. So he's been good for the Panthers. So sure, they fall off quite a bit with Luongo not being in, but Reimer's been real good for them.
7 Panthers, it says, have scored at least 3 goals in December, so there's balance in the scoring for Florida. But this is the stat that jumps to me, Coatsy. They're 29th in the league in home attendance, 12,636. And you and I both know a lot of those fans are disguised as empty seats. It's a different matchup when you go. Now, Tampa, I think, will have a decent crowd, but you ought to see a lot of Flyers fans is the point that I'm getting to. When you do this back-to-back, and you're the mayor, Coatsy, everybody loves you, everybody knows you, I bet you're going to see a lot of familiar faces down there, right?
Yeah, we'll see a lot of people here from Philadelphia and here and tomorrow night. This place is an interesting. It's got an interesting history. I mean, when they came into the league, they were playing the Miami Arena, which is actually the same kind of architecture, same type of building as the Spectrum. The crowd was right up on top of you. They were throwing. They had the rats, of course. That was a big part. And the league said, "Well, oh my goodness, you can't have that. They can't be throwing those plastic rats." So they got rid of those, and then they came out to this building in Sunrise, and it's huge, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, and they have a hard time. And they haven't had the same teams that they've had in the past. When you think about the Flyers and Lindros and playing against the Florida Panthers back in the day, those were wars, absolute wars in the old Miami Arena. And it's just not the same since they got here in this building. So it's been a struggle for them. Quite honestly, I think the building's too big, but they didn't ask me. So having 13,000 in this building, it's really like you said, empty seats.
Well, that's what the Flyers will face tonight. Flyers and Panthers. Steve Coates, the Flyers radio analyst. I saw that. I once stayed in an apartment, a high-rise apartment building, Coatesy, right across from the old Miami Arena. So I remember that building. I never was inside it, but I do remember at least the architecture and where it was located in Miami and all that stuff. So that was like 94. I was skinnier and younger and had more hair then, buddy. Hey, good stuff out of you as always.
Whoa. You were what?
Skinnier, younger, and I had more hair.
Oh, my God. I have to have a visual of this. I got to kind of put it in my mind. Can you send me a picture?
I will. And we'll listen to you on the radio tonight, my friend. Oh, by the way, at Flyers Radio 24/7, the Twitter handle, if you want to follow the radio broadcast team and all their tweets, Tim Saunders and Brian Smith and all the guys there, they tweet regularly on Flyers Radio 24/7. Plus, you can find you do your stuff with Timmy on the Flyers app, too, I know, Coatsy. So good stuff out of you, bud.
Thanks, Pete. Nick, take care, all right?
Thanks,
Happy New Year to you guys.